Hello. If everyone could make their way back to their seats, we'll get started on the next set of talks. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Jordan.
How you doing?
Very, very good.
That's us. I really, really, really want to know if there's going to be music on the next slide. So either it's going to be silent and we're going to stand here like, what do we do now? Or there's going to be music and we'll do the same thing. We'll still stand here going, what do we do now? No music. I'm actually kind of glad there's no music. This is Monzo's growth of card usage basically since inception. We had the Game of Thrones music playing over the top of it to kind of give the idea of like conquering the Seven Kingdoms. But when I listened to the music back, I just felt like disappointment and emptiness after the last season. So I'm kind of glad that it didn't play. So here we are today. We have 2.3 million customers. If we go back in time a year, we had about 750,000 customers. Right now, we add about 250,000 customers per month. So it took 4 years to reach 1 million customers. And at our current growth rate, we add about 1 million customers every 4 months. This sounds great, but we're not here to self-congratulate. If we want to get to 30 million customers, it still takes quite a long time. So we're going to talk about growth and how we're sort of accelerating that. However, before we get too far into the void, I'm Jordan. I'm a product director here. I joined about 2 years ago.
I'm Phu. I'm a design director here. I joined 6 months ago. So we're here to talk about growth. But what is growth? What do we actually mean when we talk about growth? So fundamentally, growth is around building a business. First thing first, we started this talk about talking about customer numbers, and we talked about how we've reached 2.3 million customers, which is awesome, which is great. But when we talk about growth at Monzo, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Most importantly, we care about customers using a Monzo. We care about making sure that we're making money work for people, and we care that people are getting value out of Monzo. So when we talk about growth at Monzo, we are talking about increasing the numbers of people who are using our product. We are talking about making sure that we are building things which help people get the most out of Monzo. And most importantly, we're talking about how fast we're doing that. We care a lot about how quickly we are growing those numbers, not just the absolute numbers from a day-to-day basis, but that we are putting more fuel into the tank, and that rocket ship is really, really, really taking off.
Yeah, if we were stood here saying, we've got 2.3 million customers, how great, but all of them signed up and never used Monzo, that wouldn't be anything to celebrate, really. So to start working on growth, we have to have a goal in mind. This seems super, super simplistic, but it's actually a little bit harder than that, because what do you optimize for? Do we care about number of app installs? Do we care about people signed up, card transactions, number of golden tickets sent, retention? All of these things seem very important. So we have to wrap this up into a super, super simple metric that can permeate throughout the company, and everyone can understand what we're working towards and if we're doing well or not. The clearer the goal, the easier it is for us to prioritize and make better decisions. For Airbnb, I think this was like number of nights booked. That's what they really cared about, number of nights booked through the platform. For YouTube, it was viewers. I think Slack cared about revenue. Given that we care about people using Monzo, we care about weekly active users. We care about people using it every day. And we define a weekly active user as someone that's used their card in the last 7 days. We want to build things that in the product, around the product, that drive up this number, people using Monzo every single week. But it's hard to think about something that drives up weekly active users. If I said, let's build a feature that drives up weekly active users, where do you start? It's kind of difficult to think about. Weekly active users itself is not really directly actionable. But instead, we're going to find levers that drill down into weekly active users and break it down into its component parts, so we can start thinking of things and making changes that can impact it. By the way, if you use Slack for work, you have to download the cowboy hat emoji pack. They're incredible. It's totally revolutionized my life. It's amazing. That's not related to growth at all. So one way to do this is to put yourselves into the shoes of the customer. What sort of journey does someone go through when they find out about Monzo? Where do they find out about it? What has their friend told them? Were they in a pub and they saw the card and they were like, that's cool? Or were they at a restaurant and they were sort of splitting the bill and they were like, quick, download it, you can send me some money real fast. And then they go, okay, cool. Lots of my friends have told me about this. Maybe I'll do it. And then do they Google Monzo? Do they go to the App Store? What does the App Store say? What do the photos look like? When they sign up, what's their first experience? I think there's a video plays and there's some of the Monzo staff using their cards, and then you go into the product and you get to some point you have to take a selfie video and go, hi, I'm Jordan. And that's maybe embarrassing if you're in public. Then you have to add money from your legacy bank, and sometimes they require you to have one of those weird things in real life and you've got to put it in your laptop. I don't know. Haven't used a legacy bank in a while. But if we walk through, you realize all of these moments are things we can use to reduce friction and influence growth. We can make this page more compelling. We can incentivize people to let their friends know more about Monzo. So if we look at some examples and break weekly active users down into its component parts, it starts to look a bit like this. And it gets a little bit easier as you go along. So weekly active users splits down into new users, retained customers, churned users, and returning users. This is a little bit simpler now. I can think a little bit more clearly. If you split new users down, you have organic, referral, adverts, and etc. Lots of things make up new users. For this chat, we're only going to talk about things in the product. Has anyone ever sent a golden ticket to a friend? No one? Did anyone sign up through a golden ticket when you joined Monzo? Cool, so everyone's relatively familiar with a golden ticket. Okay, so on the left, you have golden tickets from 2018. And on the right, you have golden tickets from today. Does anybody know two major changes that are different between these two things that might have had an impact on our growth? Go on. Personalization. Shit, I wasn't hoping you'd get that one. Okay, yep, that's one of them. Anything else? Get a fiver. Cool. So these two things are changes that happened that materially impact our growth rate. If you look along the bottom now, you can break referrals down into actionable levers. So you can influence weekly active users by changing the conversion rate of the invite. Adding personalization improved this by 15%. You see this thing, you trust it a little more. That's my friend's face, and that's their name. That makes sense. You can improve the number of people someone sends an invitation to, or the percentage of people that even bother sharing an invite at all after they've joined Monzo. In the instance of the £5 rewards, so a dual-sided incentive program, this drove up the bottom three, on the three on the right. The percentage of people sharing increased, the conversion of the invite doubled, and the number of people that invite increased as well. The personalization only impacted the one on the bottom right. These are the kind of experiments you can run that will dial back up, and each of them succeeding means we're now growing at a faster rate. We've impacted weekly active users.
Cool. So we've got a growth bird here. We'll explain this a little bit later.
They might have seen this already. Simon, did you show them the bird? Yeah, it's good, cool. It's not just a weird bird. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can apply this philosophy to any sort of growth problem. Sometimes at Monzo, we don't just work on driving customer numbers. We care about things slightly lower in the funnel. So if we're getting customers that don't use Monzo, that's bad. But if we get customers that add their salary to Monzo and use Monzo for more things, that's really great. It's better for us. They're getting more value from it. And it's better for Monzo as a company. So Phu's going to chat a little bit about how we can apply this philosophy to other kind of problems too.
So let's step through that experience again from the point of a customer. We care about focusing on one problem. We care about understanding the pain points and the things that a customer will go through and experiencing that. And we care about thinking about what's the highest opportunity thing that we can do to change this goal. So cycling a little bit back, I think Simon's introduced the example that we're going to go through. But one of the key things about making money work for everyone is that we found out that the more of your financial lives that you have in Monzo, the more value it gives you, the more things that you can do. And so we take forward. One of the things that we wanted to do was look at how we can sort of drive salaried. So starting from the very first point, we can talk about when people first find out about Monzo, we can tell them a little bit about why it'd be good to get your salaried into Monzo. We can send little nudges along the way. So throughout the whole month, we can send you little messages to incentivize you to put your salary in. Or we can look at the point when you actually get your salary paid in, which is an amazing moment of sort of delight. Which takes us on to the growth bird, or the metaphor was the early bird gets the worm. So the idea is that we can help drive growth by really improving and making a fantastic customer experience for something that typically is a little bit loaded with friction. You would get your salary in the early mornings. It'll come through. You don't really know what's happening there. But if you were to get that a day early, you can actually use your money and spend it. And when you get your money, it's suddenly this great point of excitement. So the fundamental thinking here is that we think about this as an opportunity point. We want to run an experiment on it. We want to look at this point in time in which it's a great way to amplify that whole experience by showing a meaningful, delightful interaction. And if we've done our job right, it's something that you talk about, something that you find a lot of value about. We're solving a real customer problem. You tell your friends about it, which is awesome. And this is another way of diving really deep into a problem in which we do something for the user, but it also adds rocket fuel to the overall goal of increasing growth for Monzo as a whole.
So this is all very well and good. It sounds very theoretical. There was a nice graph where some things came out of another thing. But how does this actually work in practice?
So the good thing is it's not just Jordan and I. I mean, I think it'd be awful if it's just Jordan and I try to focus on this one problem.
Yeah, it'd be like this talk.
Indeed. But the great thing about how we work and how we think at Monzo is that we care a lot about teams all focusing together, working together, and bringing their individual expertise onto focus on a problem. And this is more so in growth than anywhere else. Growth fundamentally is a team sport. Everyone has the sort of same philosophy about thinking about the headline number. Everyone has the same philosophy about driving towards impact. Everyone has the same philosophy about learning really quickly. And so when we start looking at how we approach a problem, we are bringing the different expertise of marketeers, designers, engineers, and we're putting the goal of driving growth and the team first, ahead of building the most beautiful experience. We want to make sure that we build an experience which gets that value to customers as soon as possible. When it comes to building the full product, we want to make sure that we're building something which is on the right track. So we want to optimize towards growth and sort of speed. And when we look at sizing the opportunity, we want to make sure that it's something that has the biggest possible reach and has the biggest possible impact towards that headline goal that we talked about, increasing weekly active customers. And when we looked at it through the lens of salaried, increasing the number of people who would put their salary into Monzo.
So you can simplify this down into sort of 3 steps, which is maybe an oversimplification, but I'm going to say it anyway. Step 1 is digging into the data that exists, quant data, to identify areas of opportunity or problems. You look into your growth model and you go, where could we be doing better, or where are we doing a bad job? Once you've highlighted these areas, you chat to customers and figure out why these are problems or why these are opportunities. Really spend some time with people and figure out, why are we doing badly here? How could we drive this up a bit further? And then finally, you work with your team and their creative intuition to solve these problems in a really elegant and delightful way. So we are able to actually solve these problems or seize these opportunities that are available to us.
The key thing there is that we use data, we use research, we use our intuition. They help give us all a really informed place to sort of start on from. But then we ruthlessly look to invalidate or validate that as quickly as possible so that we're learning and adding more information for the next set of things that we do. This concept of experimentation as a way of learning runs really deep through the way we work. And the most important thing is that if we are to do things well, then we are learning quickly. And we believe that the company or the team who learns the fastest will win. In the grand scheme of things, the faster you learn, the faster the feedback loop is, the more you succeed. Which means that when it comes to experimentations and the experiments that we run, we want to be as bold as possible. And that comes with a couple of consequences, which is not everyone is going to succeed. If every single experiment succeeded, then either we are playing our bets too conservatively, or we're taking and putting too much effort into them, and we're not learning fast enough. And when we go back to the philosophy that we have at play, the company or the team who learns the fastest, and the company or team who learns the best, we want to really maximize that throughput. It also means that from when we build stuff and when we think about what we work on, that we will be doing things that will make us uncomfortable. If we're not a little bit uncomfortable when we start shipping or start releasing some of the things that we have out, then we've probably sort of taken too long. And when it comes to the things that you'll sort of start seeing in your products, whether you're in one of the experiments or you sort of see what some of your friends may be sort of talking about, some of those may be things which, on the surface of it, might seem a little bit strange, but it's all towards the goal of learning quickly as possible, and all towards the goal of doing things which we hope we can either learn to drive the metrics in terms of how we can add more value for our customer base, or we can learn a lot more faster in order to do so.
So why is growth important? Why are we talking about this at all outside of the obvious?
Growth is really interesting because it helps us build a better product quicker. When the more you grow and the bigger your customer base, the more opportunities it lets you do. So if we talk back to the point of place we are right now, we have 2 million users, and that gives us a hell of a lot of opportunities to do stuff. We can do stuff such as TV campaigns, things that would be totally impractical about a year ago, or probably even sort of 6 months ago. I think that would be something that might not necessarily be the highest impact thing. We can do endeavors such as growing into different areas. So internet expansion, that's something that makes a lot of sort of sense now, but 2 years ago is probably not the most viable thing to do. It also helps us be better at doing the things that we operate. So the greater the amount of customers you have, the more you can learn from your customers, the more experiments you can run at any given time, and the faster those experiments will learn. So growth really, really sort of supercharges learning and supercharges opportunities in terms of what you can do.
It also gives us greater defensibility. So the larger our user base, the more we can leverage features and the more we can rely on habits. I think that the switching cost, once a habit has been formed, is consistently underestimated. So growth is sort of a moat that protects us from competitors and allows us new opportunities that we wouldn't really have otherwise had.
Growth is cool. So big numbers are cool numbers, and big numbers and a big sort of a product which lots of people are using. That's an amazing sort of signal to everyone. It brings in new talent, so it allows us to hire more specialism and hire more people who can make us better. It can bring a lot of attention towards us in the press and media. More people are aware of us without us having to do any effort at all. And that's the sort of thing which grows and grows. Growth begets more growth. Ultimately, a growing product and a growing customer base and a growing customer base that you care about is a signal that, of many, that you are doing something well and you're on the right track. And the more you sort of focus towards that, the better you are.
Yeah, the best companies are built on a system of compounding loops, basically. And the returns you get from those loops are typically a function of the existing user base. So the bigger you are, the bigger you end up. And the bigger we are, the more we can do to make money work for everyone and increase the potential value of Monzo. So what should you take away from this chart apart from growth is good? Hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about how we work internally and how we use things in the product to accelerate growth. We want to use the next year to continue digging into the growth model, running experiments, and solving real problems to supercharge and accelerate our ascent towards 10 million customers. We'll keep using this over the next year to progress the size of the customer base and continue to increase the curve of our weekly active users. Thank you for taking this journey with us. And if I can make one request, it's that you send 18 golden tickets on the way home today. Next up, we have Hugo and Tom. But sure, first a short intermission until 3:30. Thank you.
you.